welcome to the Reclaimability podcast. On this episode, Canadian veteran Lee Murphy takes center stage as he talks about how he reclaimed ability from childhood trauma and adult addiction to raising a family, running a business, and now representing Canada as a backyard ultra-marathon runner. I'm here with Lee Murphy, who's just completed his 700, probably over 700 days now, consecutive days of running more than 10 kilometers a day.
Yeah, today will be my 710th day.
Oh, that is totally awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we're going to, talk to you about sort of what brought you to that. So,
yeah, sure.
First of all, it's interesting because we're actually sitting here in Hubbards, Nova Scotia, which is a tiny fishing village, but it looks really artistic now, probably a lot more than it did 100 years ago.
Yeah, more of a tourist town now.
Yeah, definitely.
Fishing,
yeah.
For sure.
And so what is it you're doing here now?
So my wife and I, manage and operate / partners with my folks, the Anchorage House and Cottages, which is a tourism vacation rental where we have a historical inn and 12 cottages on the same property right on Hubbard's Cove. So
And
that's where we're sitting at.
And this is, this is where you grew up.
It is, yeah. So it's been a family business since the mid-90s. Originally, we come from St. John's, Newfoundland. My folks, my stepdad and my mother met in Newfoundland, and then in 1998 they decided to make the move to Nova Scotia when I was just a kid, and came here and bought the business and developed it and grew it to what it is upon their retirement about 10 years ago when my wife and I decided to take it over. I'm raising kids here now. We have a 12 and a 7-year-old. The elementary school has about 100 kids, so pretty small. So I remember coming from St. John's, which is the bigger city, and just realizing that, I came from a different place and now I'm going to try life out here and try to fit in as best I could. And I just started to live my Nova Scotia life, and now I would consider myself more of a Nova Scotian than a Newfoundlander.
But actually, you came from something completely different, really.
Yeah.
And so, what was it like to make that transition?
Moving here meant that I was going to be full time with my mom, and I think my home life in Newfoundland wasn't the safest environment for me. So I remember feeling like I was safer in Nova Scotia with my mom. So it was a super positive experience for me. And in a way, I kind of felt like, all right, like I'm okay. Like, let's get on with life, where I wasn't in like a fight or flight kind of.
Yeah. So you sort of experienced that as like, this is when you can start living.
Yeah. That's kind of how I look back on it now. But, I lived in a I guess a life of fear from my father, who was an alcoholic. And I think just as I developed mentally and emotionally, I think I just never dealt with a lot of that. So a lot of those things that I experienced growing up as a kid, I kind of just stuffed them inwardly. So I couldn't really trust people. I definitely couldn't be vulnerable, and I definitely didn't want to face how I was feeling. So I would just act out in order to kind of counteract.
Right. You had to do something with it.
Exactly.
You didn't know what to do with it.
Exactly. I just didn't know how to manage it. I started experimenting with drugs and alcohol in high school. I became a binge drinker. So every weekend, me and the boys, or me and my friends would be at house parties or kitchen parties, we call them here down the East Coast. And it just became part of my lifestyle to abuse chemicals, abuse substance. And that was a huge part of why I think as a young man, couldn't get things together. I couldn't get my life structured. I couldn't manage my emotions either. Like if anything negative happened, or I got embarrassed about something, or something was difficult to deal with, it was either not deal with it or drink it away. When I graduated high school, I went out to the oil patch like most East Coasters do, most young men, where I learned how to make a pile of money, and I learned how to waste a lot of that. I learned how to party and whatnot. And then after that got old, a couple of years of doing that, I came back to the East Coast and I tried my hand in college. But I just don't think I prioritized my studies very good, and my results showed. In 2008, I joined the infantry, the Royal Canadian Regiment, so 2nd Battalion was where I got posted in Gagetown. And then I spent 3 years there. And then I was put into Rifle Company first, and then got an opportunity to do the recce course, and then got selected off of that to go to recce platoon. So that was my existence in the Army. I wanted to learn how to, take care of myself and make an income and be stable. And I struggled with that for a while.
And how bad had it gotten for you?
At 23 is when I had my last drink, but that was June 24th, 2012. Was arrested for my second DUI in 7 months. I was in the military back then, so the consequences of my drinking were pretty drastic. So 2 DUIs, I had an AWOL charge, a drunkenness charge, all within a 7-month period. I was on CMP protocol for people who are, not falling in line and getting in trouble with the law, etc. So, the consequences of my substance abuse was piling up on me pretty heavy at 23. So,
and you're talking about you've already mentioned how you kind of like to have ability. You like to be able to know how to do things and take ownership, and you sort of had that responsibility growing up. Yeah. And now all these things that you've been doing sort of to take care of yourself, they're not working.
No, they actually were having the opposite effect. Drugs and alcohol had long, and I say long, I only used them for a short time, but they've long lost their positive effect in my life. They give me an ability to deal with anything. But
you're saying actually very quickly. It might not have been a long time, but very quickly starting to use them, they were already just negatively impacting.
Exactly. Yeah, they caused more problems. The story is not unique to me for sure.
No, but I'm moved by the picture that I saw of you. It was you were advertising going on the ultra marathon, I think, working up to going to Edmonton, I believe. I could be wrong. You've done so many of these. But there was one picture. It was a black and white photo, and I think it was, if I can remember correctly, it was like the last photo before everything. Yeah. Everything before you hit rock bottom.
Pretty much. Yeah.
And if I could be so candid, I look at that picture and I don't even have it in front of me right now. I'm just describing it to you, and I can feel a visceral reaction in me. Like, it's terrifying for me to see you, because I actually, as I look at you now, I don't see the same person. I see a shell of someone. Yeah. And that's what I really saw in the picture. It's a very powerful picture.
Yeah, it kind of just was like an empty vessel, just a lost kind of boy, in a way.
How old were you then?
When that picture was taken, I was like 21 or 22. So, still a young dude, but had I not reached the choice point and decided to choose differently, who knows where I'd be, I've had lots of experience working in the recovery communities of what that road leads to, whether it's, death by overdose or drunk driving, or, that's probably likely what would have been me. I was a chronic drunk driver, no matter what. Every time I drank, I would go out for a thrill of it kind of thing, like just seeking adrenaline. I was out of control at times, for sure.
And it's interesting because you're out of control, yet you talk about wanting to be in control, having the ability to be in control,
right?
And just it not happening.
Yeah, totally. So that was always I always had the aspirations and the initiatives to do well, to be better, to be in control. Yeah, but I just couldn't back then.
So what was that choice point that you talked about? I mean, everybody has their own rock bottom. It seems to be that no matter who you talk to, they have my rock bottom will look different than your rock bottom will look different than somebody else's. So what was Do you recall what that was?
It's very difficult to pinpoint or nail down one specific thing. Mm-hmm. It was kind of like a combination of everything, you know. It was financial. It was just inability to like feel okay in my skin, so emotional. My son was just born, so he was 2 months old the last time I drank. So there was this like huge thing of being a new father, and like having that responsibility weigh in on my conscience, and you know, just, you know, I had this other being who was going to be depending on me as well, and me not having the greatest relationship with my biological father, like that was a big deal too. And I talked to my sponsor in the programs or whatever. I've, you know, talked about this a lot, even when I share in the rooms and whatnot. But, you know, I just didn't want to be that alcoholic father and have an estranged relationship with a son, right? Because I just didn't want to reproduce my experience, right? Because I knew what that felt like. So you might not have had the right answer, but you knew what was the wrong answer. Yeah, it was like exactly. So it was like I was feeling all these things, all these truths and realities, and they just kind of hit me square in the face, like, for lack of better words. Like I just kind of was woken up, right? And you know, mind you, it was a big punch, right? Like it was everything all at once. And my relationship with my wife now was like the mother of Jackson, was in turmoil. Like she was like afraid of what would happen. I'm pretty sure at that time she had gone back to live with her parents and taken Jack with her. And from conversations I've had with her, you know, her folks and her were, you know, thinking about getting lawyers to kind of go for custody and things like that. Like, so like things are getting really, really serious. My relationship with most of my close friends and even my close family, so my parents, was, you know, never been worse. So everything, my entire life was falling down around me. So I was faced with, you know, that there was two roads, right? It was continue on and destroy myself, or get sober. That was it.
So it kind of felt like it was in that spot of like, it's either I'm either done or I make some kind of change.
Exactly. Right. So I just, I hurt too much to continue on. Yeah. And so what was the first change that you made? Like, how do you start that? Yeah, that's difficult too. It's like, how do you just rewire your whole, like...
It's almost like asking for the golden nugget, because, I mean, you're right. You're not the only one that struggle with these things, but also there are many that we can't talk to because they didn't find that spot.
That's right. Yeah, for
sure.
So
that's why I'm curious.
Yeah. Luckily, I had, I would say, mentors or friends, older friends, as I grew up, that were sober. And they were always very open and honest about the results of their alcoholism and how it you know, affected their life. And for a lot of it, I kind of witnessed as a kid.
Right.
But then I also witnessed them getting healthy and getting sober and getting their lives back together.
You've seen them.
I've seen them.
Change can happen.
Yeah. So like on my first DUI, you know, kind of grabbed me by the arm, and he was like, you know, if there's ever anything you need, kind of thing, you know, like the DUI and blah blah blah. He was just kind of pointing out things from my life. He's like, you know, we kind of know like what's, you know, how serious things can get, and I was like, kind of brushed him off. I was like, oh no, this is just, you know, it's
good.
Yeah, I'm good. Exactly. I kind of just, I didn't clue in then.
Would there have, thinking back about that time,
sure,
and not judging him whatsoever, but what he did, but would there have been anything that anyone could have said in that choice point moment that might have changed it then?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So when you say that, when you think about it, I know. The way I think about it. So.
I think it was just, I had to hear it, and then I had to live more experience, and then I had to feel more something. And whether that's like pain, learned or lived experience, and like I just had to come to the conclusion myself.
You hadn't found the bottom yet.
Yeah, I guess so. So now when you ask me like, well, what was it that made me decide, right? Well, it's like I had the influence of people who've done it, right? So their experience could be passed on to me. And then another friend, Derek, who you know, Derek, I used to work for him doing landscaping and odd carpentry jobs and stuff like that. And he's the same way, was honest about his sobriety and whatnot. So I had that friendship as well. So when I was in the detox unit, kind of drying out, it was like, well, maybe I'm going to try AA, right? So maybe that's like the only way I can. And then also there's a detox nurse, I forget his name now, but he was also in the program, but he gave me like the step 1 packages or whatever. It was basically a questionnaire. It's like, well, how has your drinking or using impacted your life, and what ways, like how many people have you put in harm's way because of it? How have you harmed yourself? You know, like what are all the consequences in your life? And it just like, in a series of like 10 questions, it was kind of like, it put it in such a way where it was like, that like I just couldn't turn away from it, right? And then along with all the real consequences of my life piled up on me, that one point in time, it was just like,
so you get that punch in the face of, whoa, I can't live like this any longer. And then you get the punch in the face of, here's a documented list of the actual consequences of why you can't, you know, what's happened already.
Like I hate using the word like epiphanies and like some miraculously point, but like something clicked in my head, like something shifted where it was like, you're fucked, man. And that was like the first time I perhaps was able to like reach out and say, I need help. Right. And even shortly after that, when I was given an opportunity to take place in a group therapy or work with a psychologist and things like that, they'd ask me similar questions, and like I would break down and I would start crying and I would bring up stuff from my past and talk and like cry about things that happened in my childhood. And that was the first time I ever felt those as an adult, right? So like the real reasons came through finally, right? And then it was like from that point on, I started making incremental changes in life.
Many people working with addictions are struggling through whatever, and they have to course correct. They have to sort their shit out or change their lifestyle. A lot of times you hear about, well, I have to, or else my wife is going to leave me, or I have to because I'm going to lose my job, or I have to because it was always external. And when
all that shit happened to me at once. My wife did leave. She took the baby. I was like 50 grand in debt. Military said, you're kicked out, right? My parents were like, you're fucking done.
You talked about all of those things, but when you talked about the choice point of change, it was about, I'm fucked.
Right.
I'm fucked.
Sure.
I'm the one that has to sort things out. It's for me.
The external perhaps is the signal.
I'm always curious about it, because when I hear people talk about, I have to do this for someone or something else.
Right.
I often notice from my own experience in the work is that's when they don't make it.
Yeah, perhaps. Well, like the signals that I'm talking about, all the external things were of my own making.
Yeah.
Right? Like
and again, there's that sense of internal responsibility or a sense of ownership. You're like, this is mine.
Right.
So it's not about them, it's about me.
The AA book, the Alcoholics Anonymous book, calls it crushed by a self-imposed crisis. Right. So I realized it was self-imposed. Like I realized it was of my own making, my own behaviors, my own choices, my own everything. And I was the architect of this shit show that I had created.
So so being the architect of this shit show that you've created, which is a lot. I mean, just hearing you go through all those things. Yeah. The choice that you have made in the past was to, well, this is it. I have to figure out where else to go to get away from it. Yeah. But you didn't do that this time. You did something different.
I guess I just owned it. I took ownership of it, right? And like some people will say, oh, well, you're an innocent child. You didn't, go through some of the traumatic things as a child. It's like, yeah, that's true. But I'm now an adult, and I have a choice for how I'm going to handle that. Those emotions, those memories, those behaviors, right? So like that is my responsibility now, right? Like sure, I was an innocent kid and I didn't, deserve or whatever to live through that, which is true, but I do have a responsibility to behave in a certain way or take ownership of my behavior and my actions, etc.
But when we own it, like you're talking about, it's like, oh, now the choices that I start to make are really kind of focusing on ownership.
Right.
And it sounds like you too, that they weren't like big overarching choices. They were like,
no,
kind of
in the beginning.
Yeah.
Sobriety.
Mm.
No, it was like get back to the basics quick.
Yeah.
It's like, just like, don't, spend your money crazy. It was like, just don't drink for, for the most basic sense is like, don't get drunk, don't get high.
So, yeah, and that's incredible because that is what most people think about addictions.
Yeah.
They're like, well, if you want to, if you don't want to be an addict, just don't do it.
Yeah.
So, in hearing you say that,
yeah,
that has a different feel, a different tone.
Well, I spent 2 years prior to that saying that to myself. Right?
So you spent 2 years working up to this.
Yeah, like I knew I had an alcohol problem like long before I got sober. I've been sober now for 12 years.
So how did running come in?
Well, running didn't come into my life till 5 years ago. This is when I got sober. Physical activity wasn't like a big, huge thing in my life, other than skateboarding. Like, it was a way that I could clear my mind. When you're, doing a flip trick down a stair set or grinding down a handrail, it's kind of hard to think about life's stresses. When you have to like make sure you don't fall on your face.
In the moment, this is a life stress. You gotta make sure you do it right.
So like, a lot of people have heard the term mindfulness or whatever, right? So like, it's very much like all your focus is on the skateboarding trick. Like, I had extreme positive effects that I felt, probably for the first time, chemical free, like being sober. It was like, I'm feeling all these natural things and I'm like, I fucking love this, right?
Yes.
And like adrenaline started feeling good. So like
because your body was producing it
100%, and I used skateboarding as a new way to like make a new life kind of thing. I got involved with the community. I kind of volunteered a lot of time in a fundraising effort, which built the skate park here in Hubbards, and that community project was already going. So I just kind of jumped in there, and I really enjoyed it.
It kind of sounds more than just giving back. You're getting back. Getting back to this community. I mean, you think about 8 years old coming into this community, it's like what it gave you and being part of it. And then suddenly, I need to get back into where I was then. I was like, I need to be in that space.
Totally. So 2019, skateboarding was just too hard on my body. I just couldn't take it. So like, I was like, either I stop skateboarding or I like change how I skate. So like just do safer things. But anyways, I don't know exactly what sparked the running. I thought, I was like, I'm just going to try to run a half marathon. And I signed up for the Blue Nose.
You started off with the half marathon?
Yeah, I just trained myself though. Right? Signed up for the blue half
so you
marathon.
set up the sort of the goal was that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like I'm gonna work up to a half marathon and that will be the ender. So then I kind of haphazardly worked my way up to the half marathon distance. And then when I actually did the first half marathon, I forget my time. It was like, it wasn't fast. It was fast for me, but it destroyed my hip and my knee because it was like way too quick. Like I sprinted the thing where I wasn't like physically fit enough to do that. But that like experience and that feeling got me like, it sparked something inside me. I was like,
I remember
there it is. There's that feeling, right? It's this feeling of working on something and producing results.
Yeah.
And it's never ending. And then I started realizing that there's people that run full marathons. And then I started hearing about ultra marathons. And then it was like multi-day effort and adventure races and like 100 milers, 200 milers. Now people are running fucking 400 miles at a time, right? So like, it's infinite, right? And that's the stuff I like.
I just see you, and as you talk about these things, and you're escalating the degree of some would call torture.
Yeah.
But a degree of intensity, your whole body just elevates. It's just like, I'm just like, I can see you just, there's so much life in that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it produces that life energy, right? And that's really what can I get back from life? If you're not running properly, you're not training properly, you can produce injuries. So not being
that's so, I just want to stop there.
Sure.
That is so true, because the narrative is I go and do these things and I can't do them.
Exactly.
You're talking about all these choice points that you're making. It's not about it's not black and white.
Yeah.
There's so many choice points in there.
Yeah. For an example of proof of concept on that, like in June at the Kedgies, what I was talking about, I ran 362 kilometers nonstop, and then I ran 10 kilometers the next day. Right? Like, yes, I was in pain, but I wasn't injured. Right? I ran 10K the next day, and 10K the next day, and 10K the next day. Within 7 or 8 full days, I felt like I was back to full strength.
Really?
Right? And I didn't stop running the entire time.
But it's also from a years of
exactly
figuring it out, not having like the packaged product, but having pieces of a recipe and adjusting them as you go.
Right, and it was just adjusting my training to me, and because everybody is so individual. It's like, well, what are you eating? What's your lifestyle? How much sleep do you get? Like, are you even emotionally capable of doing it, right? Like, how much are you working otherwise? What do you do for a day job? Like,
I love that.
It's all these other factors, and so individual that, like, plug and play or cookie cutter protocols aren't the solution. I think each person has to kind of curtail their training to their own bodies.
And that can be a struggle, I think, for people who are suffering from substance abuse right now, because it looks like a cookie cutter. Oh, this is here's what you have to do. But
exactly.
Even in hearing you say that, it ultimately came down to you. This 100%. Is what I need. This is what's coming up for me.
So there's a kind of a saying that I say a lot in the recovery program. Is like, what worked for me might kill you. Right? And that's just a blunt way of putting it. It's like, what worked for me in my life to get recovered and get healthy and get clean might not be the exact answer that you need. Right? So, like, being a mentor in recovery, which I am now, a lot of the time I talk to these people who are new to it, and it's like, we need to go through all the aspects of your life and try to figure out what's working and what isn't working for you, so you can decide what works.
You need to see all the pieces of the recipe for you, not the end product.
Exactly. And I learned these things in sobriety, and I changed my entire life, and now I apply them to my ultra running, and I'm experiencing great results. So it's awesome.
This is the work that I do is I work with the nervous system, and I all the things that you've talked about are the things that I say, like, I use the nervous system recalibration, which is something that I created. It has 5 critical components. One is breathing, which you're clearly doing when you're running. It's amazing how you can, how you're able to shift your breath. Yeah. But rhythm, just movement. I mean, you talked a lot about you needing to move, and when you did, you were able to think through things, think clearer, and all these wonderful things, right? 100%. Your environment's critical. Yeah. Social engagement is critical. We often think social engagement is, okay, we just have to be around people, but that's not the case. Like, you can be around people and be way worse.
For sure, depending on the people.
Yeah, and then that curiosity. You're talking about all the pieces of the pieces that make the ingredients, that make the right. Yeah, and so.
Well, a big reason why I light up when I talk about running is because I've found this passion for it, right? And I think that's a big thing. People need to find something that they can be passionate about. Like, I don't care what it is. Someone's got to be passionate about something, and if you can find something to be passionate about, it will ignite energy, in your life like no other, right? Like, if you're living sedentary and you're not doing anything, you're just kind of living this mopey, kind of dopey existence. Well, that's the reason why you feel like shit. You know what I mean? So, the ultra running for me is especially, because I do it every single day, it gives me a daily mission. It gives me a daily reprieve. It gives me a chance to meditate every day. It gives me a chance to work any kind of emotion out, whether it's sadness or happiness or anger or stress, right? I
get some time to do it when you're doing an ultra marathon.
Exactly, right? The Backyard Ultra in Edmonton is the Canadian World Team Championships of Backyard Ultra. So the Backyard Ultra is a 4-mile every hour on the hour until the last man standing. Right, so it could go. The world record is 108 hours.
You're one of 15 representing. Is that what they?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. So me and 14 others are going to compete together on October 19th in Edmundston, New Brunswick, and each one of the Canadian athletes that are going to be there are like the top of their individual races. So the one where I competed at was Kedgey's Backyard Ultra.
Right. So I'm curious to know, how can people support you as you go and represent Canada on this backyard ultra marathon?
Yeah, for sure. It's just to follow on social media. So my social media accounts is just at Halifax HFX Trail Runner on Instagram, or
Sweet.
You can look me up, Lee Alonzo Murphy, on Facebook. Like I said, I'm passionate about it and I really love it. It is a passion of mine. And I want to do 200 milers that are in the UK and in the United States. And those are big, expensive things. So if, one little person just follows me on social media, that might help gain me some more corporate support. Just having fun. I don't take myself too seriously, that's for sure.
There was a point in time when you were not having fun.
Yeah, exactly.
So it looks good on you. And I really
Jeff.
want to thank you for showcasing your abilities.
Yeah, for sure.
Unlike public institutions or nonprofit organizations, the Atlanta Group and Trauma Training Center uses membership contributions to enable innovative and independent research, publication, program development, and delivery without the bias or influence of outside investors or donators. Got a topic or question? Be part of the contribution by reaching out. We may feature it on one of our episodes. I look forward to learning, growing, and being curious with you.